The ancient stone steps descended into darkness beneath the royal archive of Elder Grove. Kaylin's shadow weave held her crystal lamp higher as she moved deeper into the forgotten levels. Behind her, the soft scrape of claws on stone announced the presence of Ember, her bonded dragon companion. Kaylin had served as the royal archivist for over 3 centuries. She knew every corridor, every vault, every hidden chamber in the massive structure that housed the collected wisdom of the Elven kingdoms, or so she had believed until this morning. The earthquake 3 days ago had revealed something impossible. A crack in the basement wall had exposed a passage that appeared on no map and in no record. The council had given her permission to investigate, though several members had seemed nervous about what she might find. Ember growled softly, a sound that rumbled through the narrow passage. The dragon had to fold her crimson wings tight against her body to fit through the corridor. Silver eyes reflected the lamplight as Ember watched the shadows with ancient wariness. "I know," Kaylin said quietly. "This place feels wrong." The passage opened into a circular chamber. Kaylin stopped at the threshold and raised her lamp higher. The walls were covered in writing she had never seen before. Not the flowing script of modern Elvish, but something older, much older. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal carved from black stone. Upon it rested a single book bound in dark metal. Kaylin approached slowly. Dust covered everything in a thick layer. No one had entered this room in thousands of years. She reached out and brushed the dust from the book cover. The metal was cold under her fingers, and strange symbols were etched deep into the surface. She opened the book carefully. The pages were not paper, but something else, something that had survived the ages without decay. The text inside was written in Old Elvish, a language she had studied but rarely encountered outside of academic texts. The first page bore a single line in letters that seemed to burn with warning. The record of the Great Sealing. Let none forget what was done and why. Kaylin felt her breath catch. The Great Sealing was a legend, a myth told to children. According to the old stories, the elder races had once encountered a terror so great that they had been forced to seal it away from the galaxy itself. But it was just a story. A myth, nothing more. She turned the page and began to read. Hours passed. Kaylin sat on the cold stone floor, the book open before her, reading by lamplight. Ember had curled around her protectively, the dragon sensing her growing distress. The book told a story that made her blood run cold. 10,000 years ago, the elder races had not been alone in the galaxy. They had shared the stars with hundreds of species, each finding their place in the vast cosmic community. Most species reached the stars slowly, carefully, their expansion measured in centuries. But then the elder races had encountered humanity. Humans had appeared on the galactic stage like a wildfire. In less than 500 years, they had spread from their homeworld to over 1,000 systems. They built faster, expanded quicker, fought harder than any species the galaxy had ever seen. At first, the elder races had welcomed them, another intelligent species to join the cosmic family. But humans were different. They did not fit the patterns. They did not follow the rules. Humans went to worlds the elder races considered too harsh. They thrived there. Humans encountered challenges that should have stopped them. They overcame them. Humans faced extinction events that should have ended their expansion. They survived. The elder races grew concerned, then worried, then afraid, because humans did not just want to survive. They wanted to win. At everything, always, the book described wars, not the ritualized conflicts of the elder races where battles were fought with honor and dignity. Human wars were total, brutal, unforgiving. Humans treated war not as a regrettable necessity, but as a problem to be solved through the complete destruction of the enemy. When the elder races tried to establish borders, humans negotiated while building ships. When treaties were signed, humans honored the letter while planning for the spirit to fail. When the elder races threatened sanctions, humans prepared for total war. The book described a concept that chilled Kaylin to her core. Mutually assured destruction, a human philosophy that said if we cannot win, we will make sure no one can. Humans had built weapons designed not to achieve victory, but to guarantee that defeat would cost their enemies everything. The elder races had realized they faced a terrible choice. War with humanity would devastate the galaxy, Even if the elder races won, the cost would be catastrophic. Human weapons were designed to extract maximum damage even in defeat, so they had chosen a different path. Not war, imprisonment. Using ancient technology that no longer existed, the elder races had erected a barrier around the human home system. Earth and its solar system were sealed away, cut off from faster-than-light travel, isolated from the rest of the galaxy. The barrier was designed to last forever, to make sure humanity could never leave, to protect the galaxy from what they might become. And there at the bottom of the page was the warning: let them sleep. Let them forget the stars, for if they remember, all worlds will burn. We have not defeated them. We have only delayed them. If the seal ever breaks, if humanity ever returns to the galaxy, they will not come as they left. They will come stronger. They will come prepared, and they will come seeking answers for their imprisonment. May the future generations never face what we have locked away. Kalen closed the book with shaking hands. This could not be real. It had to be myth, exaggeration, ancient paranoia given form. But the book was here, in a sealed chamber, hidden and forgotten for 10,000 years. She gathered the book and made her way back up the ancient stairs. Ember followed close behind, the dragon unusually quiet. When Kalen emerged into the main archive, the afternoon sun was streaming through the tall windows. The normal world seemed strange after hours in the darkness below. She went straight to the council chambers. The High Council met every day at sunset to discuss the affairs of the kingdom. Kalen had never interrupted a council session before, but this could not wait. The guards at the chamber doors tried to stop her, but she pushed past them. The 7 council members looked up in shock as she burst into the circular room. "Archivist Shadowweave," said High Councillor Bryn, his ancient face showing more surprise than anger. "This is highly irregular." "Forgive me, councillors," Kalen said, breathing hard. "But I have found something that cannot wait. Something that concerns the security of not just Eldergrove, but all the elder races." She placed the metal book on the council table. The councillors leaned forward to look at it. "What is this?" asked Councillor Maya, the youngest member of the council at only 600 years. "The truth about the Great Sealing," Kalen said, "and a warning about what we sealed away." For the next hour, she explained everything she had read. The councillors listened in growing disbelief. Some were skeptical. Others were intrigued. But all were troubled by the implications. "Even if this is true," said Councillor Drake, "it was 10,000 years ago. These humans, if they even existed, are certainly gone now. Or forgotten. Time changes all things." "Perhaps," Kalen said. "But should we not at least investigate before we do anything that might disturb the seal?" "Disturb the seal?" Councillor Bryn looked at her with confusion. "Why would we do that?" Kalen felt ice form in her stomach. "What do you mean?" The councillors looked at each other. Finally, Councillor Maya spoke. "There is a proposal before the council. Commander Lydia Thornhart has requested permission to lead an expedition to the barrier zone. The region has been forbidden for so long that we have no current surveys. It may contain valuable resources." "No," Kalen said sharply. "You cannot. If this record is true, if even half of it is true, approaching that barrier could be catastrophic." "The record is ancient history," said Councillor Drake dismissively, "and even if these humans were as dangerous as the text claims, they were sealed away with primitive technology. 10,000 years of isolation would reduce any civilization to dust. If they survived at all, they are certainly no threat now." "But we do not know that," Kalen insisted. "We should study this text. We should investigate carefully before we send anyone near that region of space." The debate continued for hours. Kalen argued passionately for caution. Some councillors agreed with her. Others sided with Councillor Drake, seeing an opportunity rather than a threat. Finally, as the moons rose over Eldergrove, the council voted 5-2 in favor of the expedition. Kalen left the council chambers feeling hollow. She walked to the western tower of the archive, where she often went to think. Ember was already there, having flown ahead while Kalen dealt with the council. From the tower, she could see the spaceport in the valley below. Even at this distance, she could see the preparations. Ships being loaded, crews being assembled. Commander Lydia Thornhart was not wasting any time. "They will not listen," Kalen said softly to Ember. The dragon pressed her massive head against Kalen in comfort. Kalen watched the ships preparing for departure. Sleek vessels crewed by the finest warriors and explorers of the elven kingdoms. They looked so confident, so powerful, but in her mind she kept seeing the words from the ancient text. The warning left by elves who had actually faced humanity. If they remember, all worlds will burn. She stood in the tower for a long time, watching the preparations below. 3 days later, she watched as the expedition fleet rose into the sky. 12 ships, including Commander Lydia Thornhart on the flagship Pride of Elder Grove. As the ships climbed toward the stars, Kaylin noticed something that made her breath catch. In the direction the fleet was heading, toward the region of space where the barrier supposedly stood, the stars seemed different somehow, dimmer, or perhaps it was just her imagination. Ember growled low, a sound of deep unease. Kaylin looked down at the ancient book in her hands. She had read it 5 more times since finding it. Each time the warning seemed clearer. The elder races had not sealed humanity away to protect the galaxy from them. They had sealed humanity away to protect humanity from itself, to give them time to grow past their violent nature, to let them forget the stars until they were ready to return peacefully. But 10,000 years might not have been enough time. Or worse, it might have been time for humanity to prepare. "What have we done?" Kaylin whispered. The stars offered no answer. The fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, and Kaylin stood alone in her tower, holding an ancient warning that no one would believe, until it was too late. Commander Lydia Thornhart stood on the bridge of the Pride of Elder Grove and watched the barrier shimmer before her. It was beautiful in a way, like oil on water, reflecting colors that should not exist in the darkness of space. The barrier was a sphere enclosing an entire solar system, ancient technology, left behind by ancestors who had possessed knowledge now lost to time. For 10,000 years it had held, unbroken, impenetrable, until today. Lydia was young by elven standards, only 400 years old. She had distinguished herself in the border conflicts with the crystalline Lumari, earning her command through skill and daring. She did not believe in ancient myths or paranoid warnings from dusty old books. The galaxy belonged to those bold enough to claim it. "Status," she commanded. Her second officer, a stern elf named Marcus Brightblade, consulted his instruments. "The technology team has identified the barrier frequency. We can create an opening large enough for the fleet to pass through." "Then do it," Lydia said. "Let us see what secrets have been hiding behind this wall for 10 millennia. The fleet positioned itself in formation. 12 ships, the finest vessels in the Elven Navy. Each carried weapons that could level cities and shields that could withstand nuclear fire. The elder races had refined the art of war over millions of years. What could possibly threaten them in this forgotten corner of space? The barrier began to ripple. The frequency generators on each ship hummed with power, creating a resonance that pushed against the ancient seal. Slowly, like tearing fabric, the barrier began to open. Light spilled through the gap, not the light of stars, but something else. Electromagnetic radiation across hundreds of frequencies. Radio waves, microwave transmissions, broadcast signals of every kind. "What is that?" Marcus asked, staring at his instruments in confusion. "Communications," Lydia said slowly. "Thousands of them, millions, all active. All broadcasting." The barrier opened wider. Through the gap they could see the solar system beyond. A yellow star at the center. Planets orbiting in predictable paths. And everywhere, the signs of activity. Satellites, thousands of them. Space stations, orbital platforms, ships moving between planets. And on the third planet from the sun, the night side blazed with light. Cities, vast networks of cities covering entire continents. "By the old gods," Marcus whispered. "They survived. They thrived." Lydia felt a cold touch of unease but pushed it aside. Survival did not mean power. Technology did not mean threat. She had seen a dozen primitive species reach their local space. None had possessed weapons that could challenge the elder races. "Take us through," she ordered. The 12 ships passed through the barrier opening. Behind them, the gap sealed itself closed. They were inside the human solar system now. Committed, Lydia activated the communication systems. "This is Commander Lydia Thornhart of the Elder Grove Kingdom, representing the elder races of the galaxy. We have come to establish contact with the species known as humanity. Prepare to receive diplomatic envoys." She waited. Silence answered her. "Perhaps they do not understand our language," Marcus suggested. "Impossible," Lydia said. The translation matrix works on any linguistic structure. If they are advanced enough for radio, they can understand us, she broadcast again. Humanity, acknowledge this transmission. We come in peace, but we will not be ignored. Respond or face consequences. Still nothing. Hours passed. The fleet moved deeper into the solar system, passing the orbits of the outer planets. Instruments detected power signatures everywhere. Fusion reactors, antimatter plants, energy production on a scale that seemed excessive for such a small region of space. Commander, Marcus said carefully, I am detecting weapons platforms. Hundreds of them. They appear to be tracking us. Let them track, Lydia said. They are welcome to observe. Perhaps seeing our ships will convince them to negotiate. But inside, that cold feeling grew stronger. She remembered Kaelin standing in the council chamber, holding that ancient book, pleading for caution. Lydia had dismissed her as overly cautious, clinging to myths and legends. Now, surrounded by evidence of a thriving human civilization, she wondered if perhaps she had been too quick to dismiss those warnings. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect Elvish with an accent that sounded almost amused. Commander Thornhart, this is Katie Morrison, United Earth Defense Coordinator. I acknowledge your transmission. Now I give you one in return. You should not have come here. Leave now. This is your only warning. Lydia felt anger flash through her. You dare threaten us? We have traveled the stars for 1,000,000 years. We have built civilizations that span galaxies. You will show proper respect when addressing the elder races. There was a pause. When Katie Morrison spoke again, the amusement was gone from her voice. Commander, you broke into our home. You issued demands in our own solar system. And now you speak of respect. I will say this one more time. Leave now. Lydia cut the transmission. All ships battle formation. We will establish orbital positions around their primary world. Let us show them what real power looks like. 3 ships broke formation and moved toward Earth. The rest maintained position near the orbit of Mars, ready to support if needed. Marcus was studying his instruments with growing alarm. Commander, those weapons platforms are activating, and I am reading power signatures that do not make sense. Some of these readings suggest antimatter reactors, hundreds of them. Primitive bluster, Lydia said, but she did not sound convinced. The 3 ships approached Earth, their shields at full power. They would take positions above major population centers and make humanity understand who held power here. They never made it. Space itself seemed to explode around them. Weapons fire erupted from positions that instruments had registered as empty vacuum. Kinetic projectiles moving at 30% of light speed. Laser arrays that could cut through starship hulls like paper. Missile swarms that appeared from nowhere. The first ship, the Dawn's Promise, took 3 kinetic hits before its shields collapsed. The projectiles tore through the hull like it was made of cloth. Atmosphere vented. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion. The second ship, Starlight's Edge, managed to fire back. Its weapons lanced out at the attacking platforms. Most missed. The human platforms were moving, dodging, using thrust patterns that violated every principle of efficient space combat. Then the second ship was swarmed by missiles. Not dozens, hundreds, each carrying antimatter warheads. The shield held for 4 seconds. Then it failed. The ship vanished in a ball of matter-antimatter annihilation. The third ship, Eternal Wind, tried to retreat. It accelerated back toward the fleet at maximum thrust. Lydia watched in horror as something pursued it. Human attack craft, small and fast, each one apparently crewed by a single pilot in a heavily armored suit. They matched the Eternal Wind's acceleration, then exceeded it. Their weapons were crude compared to Elven technology. Just chemical rockets and metal slugs. But they worked. The attack craft swarmed over the retreating Elven ship, firing at close range, overwhelming the point defense systems. Eternal Wind exploded. 900 Elven lives gone in seconds. Lydia stood frozen on her bridge, unable to process what she had just witnessed. 3 ships destroyed, just like that. By a species that should have been primitive, that should have been helpless. Katie Morrison's voice came through the communication system again. I told you. You should have listened. All ships retreat, Lydia heard herself say. Back to the barrier, now! The fleet turned and accelerated away from Earth back toward the outer system. The human attack craft did not pursue. They simply watched as the Elven ships fled. But Lydia knew this was not over. She had lost ships, lost people. The Council would demand answers, would demand retribution. and she, in her pride, would give them exactly what they wanted. On Eldergrove, Kaylin worked through the night in the ancient chamber beneath the archive. She had found more texts, more records hidden in sealed containers around the room. The more she read, the more terrified she became. The ancient elves had not just sealed humanity away. They had watched them for centuries before making that decision. The records described human nature in detail. Their adaptability, their refusal to accept limits, their tendency to treat every challenge as a puzzle to be solved. One text described a human saying that chilled her. Necessity is the mother of invention. Humans did not see barriers as endpoints. They saw them as problems requiring solutions. Another record described human warfare. Not just the tactics, but the mindset. Humans did not fight for honor or glory. They fought to win by any means necessary. They would sacrifice anything, including their own lives, to achieve victory. The final text she found was different from the others. It was written by a dragon, one of the ancient ones who had lived during the time of the sealing. Dragons had longer memories than elves, passing knowledge genetically through their bloodlines. The dragon's text said something that made Kaylin stop breathing. We sealed them away not to protect ourselves, but to protect them from us. In another 1,000 years, we would have provoked them into a war that would have consumed the galaxy. So we removed them from the board, hoping time would gentle their nature. But I fear we have made a mistake. We have given them time to prepare, to think, to plan. If they ever return to the stars, they will not come unprepared, and they will not come forgiving. Kaylin closed the text and ran from the chamber. She had to reach the council, had to make them understand, had to stop whatever was about to happen. But when she reached the council chambers, she found chaos. Messages were coming in from the expedition fleet. Reports of ships destroyed, human weapons that should not exist, technology that defied expectations, and Commander Lydia Thornhart demanding reinforcements. No, Kaylin said, pushing into the chamber again. You cannot send more ships. You will only make this worse. Counselor Drake turned on her angrily. 3 of our ships have been destroyed. 900 of our people are dead. What would you have us do? Accept this insult? It was not an insult, Kaylin said desperately. It was self-defense. We invaded their home. We threatened them. They responded exactly as the ancient text said they would. Then what do you suggest? High Counselor Bryn asked. Send me, Kaylin said. Let me go to them. Let me try to negotiate before this becomes a war that will destroy us all. The council argued for hours, but in the end they agreed. Kaylin would go to Earth. She would try to make peace. But even as she prepared her ship for departure, she saw the war fleet assembling. 3,000 ships, dragon riders, Lumari world breakers. The elder races were gathering their full military might. Kaylin climbed onto Ember's back. The dragon spread her wings and launched into the sky, the small, fast ship following close behind. They would reach Earth in days. The war fleet would arrive in weeks. She had that long to prevent the extinction of either humanity or the elder races, or both. Kaylin pushed her ship to its limits as she raced through space toward the human barrier. Behind her, she knew the war fleet was assembling. 3,000 vessels, the largest military force the elder races had gathered in 5,000 years. And she had perhaps 10 days to stop a war before it consumed everything. Ember flew alongside the ship, the dragon moving through space with an ease that still amazed Kaylin after 2 centuries together. Dragons could breathe solar wind and fold space in ways that defied scientific explanation. Ancient beings with ancient powers. 3 elven patrol fleets tried to intercept her. The council had sent orders to bring her back. They believed she was acting on emotion rather than reason. They did not want a lone archivist interfering with military operations. But Kaylin had not survived 300 years by being easy to catch. She used every trick she knew. Sent the ship diving through asteroid fields where larger vessels could not follow. Used gravity assists around planets to change direction impossibly fast. And when pursuit grew too close, Ember would fold space, pulling both dragon and ship through a momentary shortcut that left their pursuers far behind. By the time she reached the barrier, she had evaded all 3 fleets. But she was exhausted, and her ship was running on emergency power reserves. The barrier shimmered before her. She broadcast on all frequencies as she approached. This is Kaylin Shadowweave, Royal Archivist of Eldergrove. I come alone seeking peaceful contact. I wish to speak with Katie Morrison. Please do not destroy this vessel. Silence greeted her. She repeated the message. Still nothing. Then, slowly, a section of the barrier began to open. Not torn like when Lydia had forced entry, but opened smoothly, as if the humans had control over the ancient technology that even elves had forgotten. That fact alone should have told the Council everything they needed to know. Kaylin guided her ship through the opening. Immediately, she detected thousands of targeting systems locking onto her position. Every weapons platform in the inner solar system had her in their sights. Proceed to the following coordinates, a voice said through her communication system. Not Katie Morrison, but someone else, male, young-sounding, but with authority. Deviate from the designated path and you will be destroyed. Your dragon companion may accompany you, but must remain within visual range of your vessel. Kaylin followed the coordinates. They led her toward Earth, past the moon, down through the atmosphere. She saw the planet below, covered in lights and structures. Billions of humans living on a single world. Yet their technology and organization rivaled civilizations spread across dozens of systems. How was that possible? The coordinates brought her to a landing field in a mountainous region. As her ship settled onto the platform, she saw armed humans surrounding the area. They wore armored suits and carried weapons that hummed with barely contained power. Kaylin opened the ship hatch and stepped out slowly, hands visible and empty. Ember landed beside the ship, folding her wings and lowering her head in a gesture of peaceful intent. The humans did not lower their weapons. A woman walked through the line of soldiers. She was older than Kaylin had expected, perhaps in her 50s by human standards. Gray streaked through her dark hair, and lines marked her face. But her eyes were sharp, missing nothing. Archivist Shadowweave, the woman said. I am Katie Morrison. You have gone to considerable effort to reach us. I hope for your sake and ours that you have something worth saying. I came to warn you, Kaylin said. A war fleet is coming. 3,000 ships. The elder races have united against you. They will arrive in less than 10 days. Katie nodded slowly. We know. We have been tracking their assembly for weeks. Did you come all this way just to tell us what we already know? I came to try to stop this, Kaylin said desperately. To find a way to prevent the destruction that is coming. The ancient records speak of what humans are capable of in war. I believe those records. But my people do not. They think you are primitives who got lucky against 3 ships. They are wrong, are they not? Katie studied her for a long moment. Then she gestured toward a building complex built into the mountainside. Come, I will show you exactly how wrong they are. They walked together through corridors carved from living rock. Ember had to stay outside, too large for the human structures, but the dragon seemed content to rest in the mountain air. Katie led Kaylin deep into the complex. They passed through security checkpoints, each one more advanced than the last. Biometric scanners, quantum encryption locks, neural verification systems that even the elder races did not possess. Finally, they entered a command center. Walls covered in displays showing information that made Kaylin dizzy trying to process it all. Maps of the solar system, tactical projections, resource allocations, weapons inventories. When your people sealed us away 10,000 years ago, Katie said, walking to a central display, humanity was in the middle of tearing itself apart. We had split into hundreds of nations, each competing for resources and territory. We had developed weapons capable of destroying our entire civilization. We were perhaps a decade away from extinction. She touched the display and images appeared. Old footage showing mushroom clouds, devastated cities, weapons of terrible power. The barrier saved us, Katie continued. Not from you. From ourselves. Suddenly we had a common mystery. A common goal. Every human nation united to answer one question. Who put us in this cage and how do we get out? The display changed, showing humanity unified. Working together. Building together. 10,000 years, Katie said softly. No wars, no conflicts. Every resource, every mind, every effort focused on a single purpose. Preparing for the day you would return. She touched the display again. The view pulled back, showing not just Earth but the entire solar system, and everywhere Kaylin looked she saw structures, stations, platforms, ships, so many ships. We built factories in the asteroid belt, Katie explained. Mining operations on every moon and planet. Fusion plants powered by Jupiter itself. We turned this entire solar system into a fortress and a factory. The display zoomed in on regions of space that looked empty. Katie smiled grimly. Stealth technology. We have 50,000 ships hiding in this system, each one designed for a single purpose, to defend Earth against an enemy we knew would come eventually. Kaylin felt her legs weaken. She sat down heavily in a nearby chair. 50,000? But that is impossible. The resources alone would require dozens of worlds. We had time, Katie said simply. And we had motivation. You gave us 10,000. And years to think about what we would do when you came back. Did you really expect we would waste that time? She walked to another display, this one showing weapons schematics. Kaylin recognized some designs, missiles, kinetic weapons, energy projectors, but others were completely foreign to her. Antimatter warheads, Katie said, pointing to one schematic. We can produce them by the thousands. Quantum entanglement bombs that can tear apart molecular bonds. Nanite swarms programmed to disassemble enemy ships at the atomic level. And those are just the conventional weapons. What else is there? Kaylin whispered. Katie looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. Things I hope we never have to use. Things that violate every convention of civilized warfare. But you need to understand something, Archivist. We did not ask for this. We did not want this. But if your people bring war to our home, we will fight with everything we have, and we have had 10,000 years to prepare. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Kaylin asked the question that had been haunting her. Why did you let me land? You could have destroyed my ship, taken me prisoner. Why show me all this? Because I hope you can stop this, Katie said. I hope you can convince your leaders that attacking us is suicide. Not just for us, for everyone. A war between humanity and the elder races will devastate this region of space. Billions will die, maybe trillions. And for what? Because your people cannot accept that we have the right to exist? Kaylin pulled out the ancient book she had carried with her. This was written by my ancestors, the ones who created the barrier. They left a warning. They said you were dangerous, that if you ever returned to the stars, all worlds would burn. Katie took the book and examined it carefully. She read for several minutes, her expression growing darker. Finally, she handed it back. Your ancestors were half right, Katie said. We are dangerous. Every species that survives to reach the stars is dangerous. But they were wrong about why. We do not burn worlds for conquest or glory. We burn them when we have no other choice. When our survival demands it, she gestured at the displays around them. This is not aggression. This is defense. We built all of this because we knew someday someone would come through that barrier. We hoped it would be for peaceful contact. We prepared for it to be for war. Your commander Thornhart showed us which it would be. Kaylin felt tears burning in her eyes. What can I do? How can I stop this? You have 3 days, Katie said. That is how long I can give you. In 3 days, your war fleet will be close enough that we will have to begin our defensive operations. If you can convince them to turn back before then, we have a chance at peace. If not, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Kaylin spent the next hours trying to send messages back to Elder Grove, trying to reach the council, trying to make them understand. But her messages were not answered. The council had cut off her communications access. They thought she had been compromised, captured or manipulated by the humans. On the second day, Katie took her to see the orbital defense platforms. They flew in a small human shuttle with Ember following outside. Kaylin saw weapons arrays that could track and destroy thousands of targets simultaneously, shield generators that could protect entire regions of space, factories that could manufacture replacement ships and weapons faster than the elder races could destroy them. We learned from Earth history, Katie explained. Every war we ever fought taught us lessons. We studied them, analyzed them, and built our defenses based on 10,000 years of human warfare expertise. Your people are walking into a battle we have been preparing for since before their current civilization began. On the third day, Katie brought Kaylin to meet Ember directly. The dragon had been resting in the mountains, but something strange had happened. Humans had approached her, young ones, children, and Ember had allowed them near. Kaylin watched in amazement as human children sat beside her dragon, talking to Ember in soft voices. The dragon rumbled contentedly, something Kaylin had only heard when the dragon was completely at peace. Ember feels it too, Katie said softly. Dragons and humans, we were bonded once long ago before the sealing. The dragons remember even if we forgot. There is kinship between our species. Kaylin felt something break inside her. This did not have to happen. Humans and the elder races could coexist, could even cooperate. But only if the killing stopped. She made her decision. "I will stay," she told Katie. "I will witness what happens when the fleet arrives. And if my people will not listen to messages, perhaps they will listen to a survivor who can tell them what they faced." Katie nodded slowly. "I hope it does not come to that. I truly do. But if it does, I promise you this. We will make sure you survive. Someone needs to remember. Someone needs to tell the story of what happened here." The next morning, the war fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 3,000 ships. The gathered might of the elder races. Kaylin stood in the command center watching the displays. Katie was beside her, calm and focused. "Last chance," Katie said quietly. "We can still offer them terms. Safe passage home if they turn back now." Kaylin sent the message, begged them to retreat. But Commander Lydia Thornhart responded with contempt. The fleet began its advance toward Earth. Katie took a deep breath. Then she gave the order that would change everything. "All units, engage defense protocol. Show them what 10,000 years of preparation looks like." And across the solar system, 50,000 human warships dropped their stealth fields and became visible. The war had begun. Commander Lydia Thornhart stood on the bridge of the Pride of Eldergrove and watched as 50,000 human ships materialized across her tactical display. For a moment, her mind refused to accept what her instruments were telling her. It was impossible. No civilization confined to a single star system could build such a fleet. The resources alone would require strip mining dozens of worlds. But the display did not lie. 50,000 vessels surrounded the Elder fleet on all sides. Human ships, each one bristling with weapons and moving with coordination that spoke of endless drilling and preparation. "All ships, battle formation," Lydia commanded, forcing confidence into her voice. "We are the elder races. We have fought 1,000 wars across 1,000,000 years. These primitives cannot stand against us." The 3,000 ships of the elder fleet arranged themselves into the traditional pattern. Dragon riders launched from carrier vessels, 500 magnificent beasts taking flight through the void. Lumari worldbreakers charged their planet-killing weapons. Elven cruisers activated shields that could withstand supernovas. It should have been overwhelming. A force that could conquer star systems. Against humanity, it lasted 17 minutes. The human attack began with no warning and no mercy. Missile swarms erupted from the human fleet. Thousands upon thousands of projectiles moving at velocities that made tracking impossible. Each missile was small, barely larger than a person, but they moved with artificial intelligence guiding every course correction. The Elder fleet fired back with energy weapons and defensive grids. They destroyed hundreds of missiles, then thousands. But more kept coming. Always more. The first missiles reached the Elder lines. They were antimatter warheads, each one carrying enough destructive power to vaporize a city block. When they detonated against Elven shields, the shields held for perhaps 3 seconds, then failed. Then ships began dying. Lydia watched in horror as the cruiser Starlight's Grace took 14 antimatter hits in the span of 5 seconds. The ship came apart like a toy, pieces spinning away into the darkness. 600 souls gone in an instant. "Return fire," she screamed. "All weapons, maximum power. Show them our strength." The Elder fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams that could cut planets in half lanced across space toward human ships. Plasma cannons superheated to temperatures found only in stellar cores fired until their barrels glowed white-hot. Kinetic weapons hurled projectiles at relativistic speeds. The human ships danced between the attacks. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were clearly calculated. Dodging, weaving, using thrust vectors that burned through fuel at insane rates. They were not trying to fight efficiently. They were trying to survive long enough to strike, and strike they did. Lydia saw the cruiser Eternal Dawn get swarmed by what looked like fighter craft, tiny ships crewed by single humans in armored suits. They came in waves, firing chemical rockets and magnetic accelerators. Primitive weapons, but effective. The fighters overwhelmed the point defense systems through sheer numbers, then fired directly into engine ports and weapon batteries. The Eternal Dawn tried to shake them off with emergency maneuvers. 3 fighters were crushed against the hull. 5 more were hit by defensive fire. But 16 got through. They planted charges directly on the ship's reactor containment. The explosion took out 2 nearby Elven frigates as well. They fight like animals, Marcus said beside her, his voice shaking. No honor, no dignity, just savage efficiency. They fight to win, Lydia said quietly, remembering something Kaelin had tried to tell her, a warning she had dismissed. And we gave them 10,000 years to perfect it. The battle spread across millions of kilometers. Human ships used the asteroids and debris in the system as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They laid minefields that activated only when Elder ships passed. They deployed weapons that the Elder races had banned millennia ago as too cruel for civilized warfare. Nanite swarms that could eat through starship hulls. Viral programs that infected ship computers and turned weapons against their own crews. Quantum bombs that destabilized matter at the molecular level. One Lumari worldbreaker, the vessel called Eternal Light, was swarmed by 10,000 drones. Each drone was barely 3 meters long, more bomb than ship. The worldbreaker's shields were legendary, capable of withstanding bombardment from entire fleets. The drones did not care about shields. They crashed into the barrier by the hundreds, each one detonating its antimatter payload. The shield held through the first 1,000 impacts. The second 1,000. But the third wave broke through. The remaining drones dove into the worldbreaker itself. They burrowed into the hull, seeking critical systems, finding them, detonating. The worldbreaker broke in half. A ship that could crack planets destroyed by weapons that cost less than a shuttle. Lydia felt her confidence crumbling. They had lost over 400 ships in the first hour. Human losses were higher in absolute numbers, perhaps 15,000 drones and 200 crewed vessels. But the humans had more. They always had more. Commander, Marcus said urgently, the dragon riders are engaging. Lydia watched as the 500 dragons swept toward the human fleet. These were ancient beings, creatures that had fought in wars before most species discovered fire. They breathed stellar fire that could melt asteroids. Their scales could withstand weapons that would destroy lesser creatures. They flew through space as naturally as birds flew through air. The humans were ready for them. Sonic weapons activated across hundreds of ships. Frequencies calibrated specifically to dragon biology, targeting the organs that allowed them to navigate and fly through vacuum. The dragons reeled in pain, their flight patterns disrupted. Then came magnetic fields, powerful enough to interfere with the natural forces dragons used to move through space. And neural disruptors that attacked dragon consciousness directly. The dragons tried to fight through it. They breathed fire at human ships, incinerating dozens. They used their claws and tails as weapons, physically tearing smaller craft apart. They were magnificent and terrifying, but the humans had studied them, prepared for them, and they had weapons designed specifically to kill dragons. Lydia watched as a group of human pilots in modified fighters flew directly alongside a dragon named Silverwind. They matched its movements perfectly, as if they had trained for this specific scenario, which she realized with growing horror they probably had. The pilots planted explosive charges along Silverwind's body, targeting the weak points between scales. Then they accelerated away at thrust levels that should have killed them. The charges detonated. Silverwind roared in pain and fury, then went still, drifting in the void. One by one the dragons fell. Not all, not most, but enough. By the time the survivors retreated back to the carrier ships, they had lost over 100 dragons. Ancient beings irreplaceable, gone forever. The Elder fleet regrouped near Jupiter, having lost 1,200 ships. Lydia knew she should retreat, should pull back and regroup beyond the barrier, but her pride would not allow it. They still outnumbered the crewed human vessels. They could still win this. She received a transmission from the High Council. They had been watching the battle through quantum relays. The message was simple. End this. Negotiate withdrawal. Preserve what forces remain. But Lydia looked at her tactical display and saw what she believed was opportunity. The human fleet had pulled back slightly, seemingly to regroup. There was a gap in their formation. A path toward Earth. One more push, she told Marcus. We break through to Earth, establish orbital position, and force their surrender. They will not sacrifice their homeworld. Marcus looked at her with something like pity. Commander, this is a mistake. It is an order, Lydia snapped. The Elder fleet advanced again, pushing through the gap toward Mars, toward Earth. The human ships fell back before them. Step by step, kilometer by kilometer, Lydia felt hope rising. They were winning. The humans were retreating. Kaelin stood in the human command center and watched the display with sick certainty. Katie stood beside her, calm and focused. "They are falling for it," Katie said quietly. "Just as we predicted they would." "What have you done?" Kaelin whispered. "What we had to," Katie replied. "We gave them a path, made them think they were winning, led them exactly where we wanted them." The Elder fleet reached the moon. They moved into formation around Earth's satellite, preparing for their final push to the planet itself. Then the moon activated. What the Elder races had thought was a natural satellite revealed its true nature. Humanity had spent 10,000 years hollowing it out, filling it with weapons, turning it into a fortress the size of a small planet. Magnetic accelerators the length of cities fired projectiles the size of buildings, each one moving at 90% of light speed. The kinetic energy in each shot was equivalent to a nuclear weapon. The bombardment lasted 15 seconds. When it ended, fewer than 300 Elder race ships remained operational. The space around the moon was a graveyard of broken hulls and shattered dreams. On the Pride of Eldergrove, alarm screamed as the ship lost power. Lydia pulled herself from the deck where the impacts had thrown her. Around her, the bridge was a chaos of fire and broken equipment. Marcus was dead, impaled by a piece of shrapnel. Half the crew was gone. The ship was venting atmosphere and spinning out of control. Lydia dragged herself to the communication station and activated an emergency beacon. She recorded a message with the last of the ship's power. "Kaelin, if you survive this, tell them you were right. Tell them I am sorry. Tell them to never come back. Tell them—" The ship broke apart around her. Commander Lydia Thornhart died believing she had failed her people. She had, but not in the way she thought. The surviving Elder ships fled. Less than 10% of the mighty armada that had entered the system with such confidence. They jumped to faster than light speed the moment they cleared the gravity wells, desperate to escape before the humans pursued. But the human ships did not pursue. They simply watched as the Elder races ran. In the command center, Kaelin collapsed to her knees, weeping. Katie placed a hand on her shoulder but said nothing. What was there to say? Outside, human ships began recovery operations. They collected bodies from both sides, treating all with dignity and respect. They rescued survivors trapped in damaged vessels, Elder races and human alike. The battle was over. Humanity had won. But in the command center, Katie looked at the casualty reports and felt no triumph. 20,000 human drones destroyed. 300 crewed ships lost. Over 15,000 human lives ended, and for what? Because the Elder races could not leave them alone. "Now comes the hard part," Katie said quietly to Kaelin. "Now you have to go home and tell them what happened here. Make them understand. Make sure this never happens again." Kaelin looked up at her with red eyes. "How can I make them understand? How can I describe this?" "Tell them the truth," Katie said. "Tell them we did not want this war. Tell them we tried to warn them. Tell them we will defend ourselves if attacked, but we will not pursue revenge. Tell them Earth wants peace. But if they ever threaten us again, we will come to their worlds, and they will learn what 10,000 years of human preparation really means." She pulled Kaelin to her feet. "You survived for a reason. You are the witness. The one who will remember. Do not waste that." Outside, through the command center windows, Earth hung in space, blue and green and beautiful, untouched by the battle that had raged around it. Humanity had protected their home, at a terrible cost, but they had protected it. Now they had to decide what came next. War or peace, isolation or contact, revenge or reconciliation. The choice would define not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. 3 months after the battle, Kaelin returned to Eldergrove. Her ship descended through familiar skies toward a kingdom draped in mourning banners. Black cloth hung from every tower. Memorial fires burned in every square. The entire realm grieved for the 1,200 ships that had not returned. Ember flew beside the ship, her crimson scales dull with exhaustion. The dragon had barely spoken since leaving Earth, carrying the weight of what they had witnessed. Guards met Kaelin at the landing platform. She expected chains, expected to be arrested for treason, for abandoning the fleet, for siding with the enemy. Instead, they saluted her with respect touched by sorrow. "The council awaits you, archivist," the captain said. "They have been waiting for your return." The council chamber felt different than Kaelin remembered. Smaller somehow. Or perhaps she had changed. After watching thousands die in the span of hours, Everything seemed smaller. The 7 council members sat in their high seats, but their faces showed none of the confidence Kaylin remembered. High Counselor Bryn looked ancient, as if he had aged a century in 3 months. Counselor Drake, who had pushed so hard for the expedition, would not meet her eyes. Archivist Shadowweave, Bryn said quietly, you are the only witness who survived from beginning to end. The only one who saw both sides. We need you to tell us everything. Leave nothing out. We must understand what happened. For 3 days, Kaylin spoke. She told them about finding the ancient texts, about the warnings their ancestors had left, about humanity preparing for 10,000 years with singular focus, about Katie Morrison and the choice humans made to defend rather than pursue. She described the battle in detail that made council members weep. She showed them recordings she had taken, images of the slaughter that their pride had created. She made them watch as dragons fell and ships broke apart. They were not the primitives we expected, Kaylin said. They were not even our equals. In the art of warfare, in the dedication to survival, they surpassed us. And we walked into their home making demands, threatening violence, proving every fear their ancestors had about the galaxy beyond their barrier. Counselor Drake finally found his voice. What would you have had us do? Ignore the opportunity? Leave resources unexploited because of ancient myths? I would have had you listen, Kaylin said softly. I would have had you approach with humility rather than arrogance. I would have had you remember that we were the ones who imprisoned them, not the other way around. We owed them caution at the very least. Instead, we gave them war. The council debated for days. Some members called for revenge, for gathering an even larger fleet, for showing humanity the true might of the elder races. But their voices grew quieter each time someone mentioned the casualty reports. Others argued for isolation. Seal the barrier again. Forget Earth exists. Pretend the war never happened. But Kaylin argued for a third path, understanding communication. Peace built on truth rather than fear. Katie Morrison gave me a message, Kaylin told the council. She said humanity wants peace. They will defend themselves if attacked, but they will not pursue revenge. They ask only to be left alone, but if we ever threaten them again, they will come to our worlds. And they will not be gentle. Is that a threat? Counselor Maya asked. It is a promise, Kaylin said, and one we should take seriously. We cannot defeat them, not now, perhaps not ever. They have had too long to prepare, but we can choose to live beside them, to trade, to learn, to grow together. The council voted. Narrowly, reluctantly, they chose peace. No more expeditions to Earth, no more aggressive actions. The barrier would remain open, but humans would be left undisturbed unless they chose to make contact themselves. And Kaylin was given a new position, Keeper of the Human Warning. Her task was to ensure no one ever forgot what had happened, that no future generation would make the same mistakes. She established a new archive in the chamber where she had first found the ancient texts. But unlike that hidden vault, this one would be open to all. Every leader, every commander, every young elf preparing for service would be required to study it. The archive contained everything: the ancient warnings, the battle recordings, testimony from survivors, even messages from Katie Morrison explaining human perspective and philosophy. The first stone at the archive entrance bore an inscription Kaylin had written herself. They were not monsters. We were not villains. We were two peoples who failed to understand each other until blood forced understanding. Learn from our mistake. Choose wisdom over pride. Meanwhile on Earth, Katie Morrison faced her own challenges. The victory over the elder races had energized humanity. Some saw it as proof that humans were superior, that they should expand aggressively into the galaxy, claiming what they deserved. Katie fought against that impulse with everything she had. She established the Elder Contact Division, dedicated to peaceful exploration and communication. She made sure every human who left the solar system understood they were ambassadors, not conquerors. We proved we can match them in war, she told the United Earth Assembly. Now we must prove we can be better than them in peace. That is the harder victory, but it is the one that matters. She began careful outreach to the elder races. Not invasion, not demands, just simple messages, offers of trade, sharing of knowledge, invitations to talk. Most were ignored, but some were answered, carefully, cautiously. The first steps toward something that might one day become understanding. Katie and Kaylin began exchanging messages through secure channels. The silent bridge, they called it. A private connection between two people who had witnessed the worst and wanted to build something better. They shared information about their peoples, cultural context that might prevent future misunderstandings, technology that could benefit both sides. Slowly, carefully, they built trust. But not everyone wanted peace. On both sides, extremists plotted. A human group calling itself Manifest Destiny stole military equipment and began planning attacks on elder race outposts. They believed humanity should dominate the galaxy, that the victory over the fleet proved human superiority. An elven faction called the Purists refused to accept the new reality. They saw humanity as an infection that needed to be eliminated. They began gathering ships and weapons in secret, planning a strike that would reignite the war. Kaylin discovered the Purist plot by accident. She was cataloging old military records when she found requisition orders that did not match official logs. Ships being prepared, weapons being moved, all done through channels designed to avoid council oversight. She traced the conspiracy to a group of military officers who had lost family in the battle. They blamed humanity for the deaths. They wanted revenge, and their target was a human colony ship called New Hope. It carried 10,000 civilians traveling to establish the first human settlement beyond the solar system. An easy target, defenseless. The attack was scheduled for 3 days from now. Kaylin contacted Katie immediately through the silent bridge. Katie had discovered something similar. The human extremists were planning to destroy an elven civilian station. The timing was nearly identical. Both attacks would happen within hours of each other. Both would kill thousands of innocents. Both would make peace impossible. "We have to stop them," Katie said through the communication link. "Both attacks simultaneously. If even one succeeds, everything we have built will collapse," they planned desperately. Katie would deploy special forces to intercept the human extremists. Kaylin would take Ember and try to stop the Purist fleet. The race began. Kaylin flew Ember at speeds that pushed the dragon to her limits. They reached the Purist fleet just as it moved into position near the human colony ship. 12 vessels, all armed, all ready to fire. Kaylin broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Kaylin Shadowweave, Keeper of the Human Warning. Stand down immediately. This is an illegal action that violates council orders." The Purist commander responded with contempt. "You are a traitor to your own kind. Step aside or be destroyed along with the human filth." Kaylin looked at Ember. The dragon rumbled with determination. They had made their choice long ago. "Ember, disable their weapon systems. Non-lethal if possible." The dragon roared and folded space. One moment they were behind the fleet. The next they were among them. Ember breathed stellar fire, not at hulls but at weapon emplacements. The dragon used her claws to tear through shield generators and engine ports. It was not enough. The Purist ships opened fire on Kaylin and Ember. One shot caught the dragon's wing, burning through scales that had withstood weapons fire for centuries. Ember screamed in pain but kept fighting. Then reinforcements arrived. Not human, not even expected. 3 elder race patrol ships loyal to the council, responding to Kaylin's emergency beacon. They positioned themselves between the Purists and the colony ship. "Stand down or be fired upon," the patrol commander ordered. "The council has revoked your authority. This ends now." The Purist commander made one final decision. He turned his weapons on the patrol ships rather than surrender. The brief firefight ended with 2 Purist vessels destroyed and the rest disabled. The colony ship was safe. At the same time, halfway across known space, Katie led her Special Forces team onto the stolen human frigate. The fight was brutal. The extremists chose death over capture, believing they were martyrs for human supremacy. Katie took a bullet through her shoulder but kept fighting. Her team secured the ship 3 minutes before it would have reached the Elven station. They disabled the weapons with seconds to spare. The station was safe. Both women made sure the other side knew what had happened. Kaylin sent recordings to Katie showing an elf attacking elves to save humans. Katie sent footage to the council showing humans dying to protect elder races. The impact was profound. On both sides, people began to question the hatred. If individuals could choose peace over easy revenge, perhaps entire civilizations could do the same. The silent bridge became official. The first recognized diplomatic channel between humanity and the elder races. Kaylin and Katie were named as ambassadors, building a framework for future relations. 10 years passed. On Earth's moon, at the site where the great battle had been fought, a monument was erected. It was built jointly by human and elven engineers, combining technologies and artistic styles from both cultures. On one side were engraved the names of every human who had died in the conflict. On the other, every elder race casualty. Thousands of names. Thousands of lives ended because of pride and fear. At the center stood an inscription in both languages. They ignored the ancient warning. We all paid the price. Let this be the last.